Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. We've got some really fascinating stuff to dig into today. You guys have sent in some amazing material, really diving deep into Buddhist philosophy.
Yeah, it's really rich stuff. A lot on karma and forgiveness specifically.
Yeah, exactly. So, what we're going to try and do today is unpack these ideas, really see what's at the core of them, and how they can actually be applied in a really practical way.
Right, right. Not just like a theoretical, oh, that's interesting, but like how can we use this to actually live a better life, you know?
Exactly, exactly. So I think the real theme that kind of jumped out from everything you sent is this idea of forgive without apologies, the untold truth about karma. And this is not about letting people off the hook or trying to get apologies. It's something way deeper.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about a much deeper understanding of how our actions, create this ripple effect and how we can kind of break free from those patterns.
Absolutely. So let's start with karma, right? That seems to be the foundation here. What is karma really in the Buddhist sense?
So, a lot of the sources you sent describe karma as kind of like a river, right?
Mhm.
It's this constant flow of our actions, and not just physical actions, but also the things we say and even the things we think, right?
Right.
And it's not just about good actions versus bad actions. It's more about the energy behind them, the intention, and how those actions, all of them, create these ripples that go out and shape our experience.
Right, so it's not like there's some judge out there keeping score. It's more like a natural consequence that's built into the action itself.
Exactly, exactly.
I love this image of the river, especially the idea of debris, like mistakes, regrets, things that we wish we hadn't done or said. But the key point is that the river keeps flowing. It doesn't just stop because of some leaves or mud.
Right, and that's a really important message for everyone listening, right?
Right.
Whatever's happened in the past, whatever mistakes you feel like you've made, they're a part of the journey, but they don't define the whole thing.
Totally. The river of your life is always moving forward.
Exactly, and I think that's where the Buddhist teaching of impermanence comes in, right?
Right, everything's in flux. Just like the river changes its course, our lives can change direction too.
Yeah, yeah. That heavy feeling you might have today, that mistake you keep replaying in your mind, it's not permanent.
And that's really hopeful, this idea that both karma as this flow and the understanding that nothing is fixed actually gives us the power to change.
Absolutely. The potential for growth is always there.
And I think the story of Angulimala really brings this home. For those who haven't heard it, this was a person who did some truly terrible things, engaged in extreme violence. But his encounter with the Buddha led to this amazing transformation.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. Angulimala's past actions didn't stop the Buddha from seeing his potential. And through guidance and understanding, he was able to completely turn his life around.
It really challenges us to see beyond people's actions, to see their potential for change.
Right, it shows the transformative power of compassion, both giving it and receiving it.
And that brings us to the story of Sarah, the entrepreneur.
Right, right.
This is a fictional story, but it's so relatable. She poured everything into her business, often neglecting her family in the process. And then the business failed.
And the guilt just consumed her. She felt like she was unforgivable.
Right, and I think so many of us have been there, right? Feeling trapped by choices we've made. But what's so powerful about Sarah's story is how she started to find a way out of that trap.
Yeah, through mindfulness meditation, she was able to step back and observe her feelings without judgment.
She began to see that the constant self-punishment wasn't helping, it was just keeping her stuck.
Exactly.
And she started writing these letters, even though she never sent them.
Yeah.
Letters of apology, of explanation, just to process everything.
It was a way to acknowledge her role in what happened and start to move towards forgiveness.
And I think that's the key takeaway here, right? Forgiveness isn't about erasing the past, it's about freeing ourselves from its grip.
Exactly. Mistakes are inevitable. We all make them. But it's what we learn from them that matters.
So we've talked about karma as this constant flow and how the past doesn't have to determine our future. Now, the sources you shared bring up this idea of emptiness, or shunyata, as being crucial for deeper healing and liberation. How can we understand this in the context of karma and forgiveness?
So, emptiness in Buddhism doesn't mean that things don't exist. It's not about nothingness.
Right.
It's about understanding that everything, including ourselves, is constantly changing. Nothing has a fixed, unchanging essence.
So it's not nihilism, right? It's actually recognizing that reality is fluid, interconnected, and always evolving.
Exactly. And this applies to our mistakes and regrets too.
Because the person we were when we made those mistakes isn't the person we are now. We've learned, we've grown, hopefully we've gained wisdom.
Right. Holding on to this fixed idea of I'm the person who made that mistake keeps us stuck in the past. Understanding emptiness allows us to let go of that.
It's like the analogy of a childhood photograph, right? It captures a moment in time, but it doesn't define who we are now.
Exactly. And this understanding of emptiness can be used as a practical tool for forgiveness.
Like the forgiveness meditation described in the material you shared, right?
Right, that four-step process. Finding stillness, acknowledging the pain, cultivating compassion, and then visualizing release.
It's not about condoning harmful actions, it's about freeing ourselves from the emotional burden they carry.
And what's so fascinating is that modern science is actually backing this up.
Yeah, studies show that holding on to grudges actually increases stress hormones, and forgiveness has been linked to better physical and mental health.
Like Dr. Luskin's research at Stanford, showing that forgiveness practices led to reduced chronic pain, better sleep, and greater life satisfaction.
It's incredible, right? It really shows that holding on to negativity is primarily hurting us.
And the story of Daniel, whose marriage ended due to infidelity, really illustrates this.
Right, he was devastated, understandably angry. But through mindfulness practices and the act of writing a forgiveness letter, he was able to find peace.
It wasn't about condoning his ex-partner's actions. It was about letting go of the bitterness that was eating him up inside.
And this leads to the idea of acceptance, right? Forgiveness seems to involve accepting that pain and suffering are a part of life.
As Shunryu Suzuki Roshi said, each moment is all we really own. When we resist the present moment by dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, we miss out on finding peace right now.
Accepting the present moment with all its pain and joy is key to healing.
And it's a process, right? It's like tending a garden. It takes time, patience, and care.
And one of the practical exercises suggested is creating a 2-column list, listing our mistakes and regrets in one column and the lessons learned from them in the other.
It's a way to reframe those experiences, to see them not just as sources of shame or guilt, but as opportunities for growth.
Right, turning those experiences into wisdom.
Exactly. So we've talked about karma as flow, emptiness as liberation, and practical tools for forgiveness. Now, there's this interesting paradox about forgiveness that I think we need to address.
A paradox.
Yeah, it seems that the harder we try to force forgiveness, the more elusive it becomes. True forgiveness often comes from letting go, from surrender.
That's tough, right? We're so used to pushing through challenges, to using willpower to get what we want.
It is. But when we tell ourselves we must forgive, we can actually create more resistance. It's like trying to untangle a knot by pulling on it harder.
It just makes it tighter.
Exactly. So it's about releasing that forceful grip, allowing the pain to be there without judgment, without the pressure to instantly forgive.
And this connects back to mindfulness, right? Being present with what is without needing to change it.
Right. Forgiveness is often a series of choices made moment by moment. And Tara's story, the woman who was trying to forgive her father for abandoning her, really highlights this.
Right, she didn't have this sudden epiphany of forgiveness. It was a gradual process of understanding, of seeing her father as a flawed human being.
And she realized that she didn't need his apology to find peace. Her healing came from shifting her own perspective.
And that's so empowering. We have the power to control our own responses, regardless of what others do or don't do.
And then there's this idea that mistakes can actually be gifts, opportunities for awakening and growth.
That's a radical shift in perspective.
It is, but think about it. It's often through facing challenges that we develop inner strength, resilience, compassion.
Like John's story, the executive who made unethical decisions and lost everything.
Right, but that experience led him to reevaluate his values and ultimately find a new path in ethical mentorship.
It's about asking ourselves, what did I learn, and how has this experience shaped me?
Exactly. And the ripple effect of forgiveness is also important to consider.
It's not just a personal process, it impacts those around us. Sarah's self-forgiveness had a positive effect on her children. Daniel's healing likely rippled out to his friends and family.
Even Angulimala's transformation inspired countless others. This shows how interconnected we all are.
Our inner peace, our acts of forgiveness, create positive change in the world. So, as we wrap up, what are some practical steps our listeners can take to cultivate forgiveness and compassion?
Loving kindness, or metta. Meditation is a great practice. Sending goodwill to ourselves and to loved ones, acquaintances, even those we find difficult.
Simple phrases like, "May you be well," can be really powerful.
And keeping a gratitude journal can be helpful. Focusing on what we're grateful for shifts our perspective to a more positive place.
And acts of service, even small ones, remind us of our capacity for positive change and create a sense of connection.
So as we conclude, I would encourage everyone to consider who they are beyond the stories of their past mistakes. Buddhist philosophy reminds us that we're not fixed, we're constantly changing. We are the awareness, the space within which all these experiences arise.
That's beautifully put. So just to summarize, we've explored karma as a continuous flow, the impermanence of difficulties, the liberating power of emptiness, and the ongoing practice of forgiveness.
And remember, forgiveness is ultimately a gift you give to yourself, freeing yourself from the past and opening yourself to peace and freedom in the present moment.
So as you go about your day, take a moment to reflect. What new possibilities might open up if you embrace the present moment without judgment? And we encourage you to revisit the material you sent with these fresh insights. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. The journey of self-discovery is an incredible one.